It's alright, guys. I totally know where we're going. Oh. Well. Outside of that new thing that disappeared, we're just fine. What's going on, everybody? Bron Age Mage here on another one of those road videos. The road to Morrowind mapping. So, you're probably asking yourself, what in blue gravy is blue gravy? Or Morrowind mapping, for that matter. You know what? Let's not even worry about blue gravy at all, because I have not personally encountered it. Thank goodness. I digress, though. So when I love driving. Driving has always been an amazing getaway for me. Very good thing for me to help unwind and see some new sights and just kind of help my scattered brain get a focus on something, and allows me to kind of hone my thoughts into one location to a varying degree of success. Well, one of my particular things that I found that tends to be a trick of mine is combining nerddom and nerdiness into aspects of my life. And one of those things in particular is what I call my Morrowind mapping skills. So, as I like to drive everywhere, and I am absolutely awful with names and numbers, this is probably what has cost me a couple of friendships or connections. But oh well, what can you do? I have been very good with being able to drive somewhere after being told a couple of times to be able to just start being able to figure out on a regular basis just how to get there, regardless of the distance that I have to travel. As, for example, on this particular trip, I am returning back to Cincinnati, Ohio from good old Cedar Rapids, Iowa. There's a little bit of a, now y'all know whereabouts I'm near. That's alright. Might probably edit this part out of the video. Whatever. So, in any case, at first I was really, really nervous about the idea of flying blind, because now we all have Google and Google Maps, and thank goodness, because those things are an absolute treasure and a grace send indeed, if I do say so myself. However, they still take up a little bit of time and to glance at, and you sometimes have a chance to miss something if you're too busy trying to focus on the road and how you're trying to get there. But now I can actually see some really, really neat stuff, even when I'm making a video such as this one. But that still doesn't explain what Morrowind mapping skills, what my Morrowind mapping ability really is to a degree. So, my brain processes things kind of like video games, and that tends to be a very common trope for myself. So, in Morrowind, which is the third Elder Scrolls game, also my favorite, we'll get into that later. On the top right-hand corner, you have a little map. Now, this is predating any of the real fast travel. There is a form of it that I'll also talk about in just a bit. That you have. So you basically have to memorize landmarks in areas, and once you find them, then it then appears on your map for you, and you do have a larger map than the little mini one in the corner. But man, that thing comes in handy. And everything else is blacked out until you actually get that area secured or located, and then you can go back and look at it that kind of way. In some retrospect or some kind of a way, my brain kind of operates in that manner. Whereas up till this point, I had never been to Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, let alone traveled through Illinois. That was actually my first time going through there, and or Indiana, I think is the other place that I'm going to. Sure, why not? Okay. But now that I've done it a couple of times, now for the vast majority of the entire trip, my brain has a kind of a mental map of the entire way, provided there are certain aspects of it that remain constant. So I see kind of like this map that leads into Ohio, and now I can just kind of go on autopilot for that, much like I'm going on autopilot for this ramble that I'm doing, because, that's just what I do. But it's interesting to me. I always find it fascinating. That's kind of one of those things that I've found particularly nice to be able to do. Now, segueing this from fast traveling to fast travel, since I sometimes wish I could fast travel, since this is a 7+ hour drive. Fast travel in video games is, in my opinion, absolutely suck. Not in the entirety of it all, because I do like the ability to fast travel, and I do use it because it is convenient. But it is over convenience when it comes to most games that would tend to offer it as something in-game feature. Going back to Morrowind for an example, because that is actually my favorite Elder Scrolls game. Hashtag get at me, because I'm nostalgic, and yes, I actually have played it recently, so it's not just pure nostalgia. But man alive, nostalgia does actually have a big part of that for me. But in Morrowind, you could go from location to location via what was known as a Silt Strider. For anyone who hasn't played or has played only the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, if you played Skyrim, you might have seen one singular Silt Strider left. Don't know if I want to get into any spoilers for that kind of thing, but needless to say, they were gigantic, flea-like bug creatures that's hide was opened up, and you rode inside of it with a caravaner, and they would get you from location to location, and you could actually pay your way to go like a taxi service quickly from one city to the next, which is in some degrees of fast travel or a precursor to fast travel, but you couldn't abuse it to be able to find some of these offbeat things, and you still had the option to go to other locations. And just because you had a Silt Strider from point A to point B, so from the first town to Balmora or Siran, you didn't have it to go out any further than some of those locations. You'd have to take it to point B, and then if you wanted to go to a different city that's further up north on the island, you'd have to pay from Balmora to one of those locations. And they were also didn't seem to be too water bearing, so if you wanted to go to some of the coastal cities, you'd have to go via boat, which ironically enough, Cyanide did not have one of those cities, so you'd have to travel to a town that did have that, otherwise you were hoofing it all the way through. So, getting back to that concept of fast travel being incorporated, when Oblivion rolled around, you could fast travel to locations that you did find previously. So if you went to it or you swung by it and it highlighted on your map, you were then allowed to fast travel to it, provided nothing was waiting for you in the dark. Which that's a Bethesda joke in and of itself that we slighted against. But digression, whatever. In any case, it kind of cut some of the fun out of the game for me. Yes, I could have just not used it, but it's like one of those things that once you have something, it's easier to use and use it than it is to actually try to ignore it or cut it out for yourself. I'm sure there's probably mods to get rid of it in the game, but I'm not much of a modder when it comes to old school games in general. But fast travel as a whole, if you don't have it, then when you're going to a location, let's say for a quest for the Mages Guild, and you have to go fight off some Dremora to be able to grab some soul gems, particular soul gems from this one person who didn't pay their dues or something. I don't think that's actually an actual quest, but close enough. Man, that sounds like a Todd Howard quest. Then you'd have to travel your way back. If fast travel didn't exist in one of these games, there is always a chance that you're not going to necessarily take the same path back. Whereas you're going down the path and you realize that there's another little tiny dirt road that leads off into the slight side of the cliff, and you might wonder, hey, maybe that's another way to get to where I'm going. And you end up going through it, and next thing you know, you're fighting off 3 trolls and regretting life decisions. But it was a great learning experience. Things like that, to that nature, and almost in some ways it feels like a story element, because maybe you'll run up when you run up there to that little troll kingdom area, and you happen to get chased up a tree or a little mountain or a little rock, and you're wondering how you're going to get back down. You might find a dead body, and that body might have a scroll on it about some poor adventurer hadn't taken an arrow to the knee and not being able to leave this rock because the trolls are going to rub down on his face or whatever have you. Whatever trolls do, besides the ones on the interwebs. So there he wallowed in his last days trying to figure out how he was going to make it. Those kind of things, coming full circle, is what really helps build character in a video game and a story. Those are the kinds of things that not having fast travel really tends to help expose or bring to fruition in your old school games. Not saying that fast travel isn't evil in and of itself, or something that's inherently wrong, because hey, I might not have time to be able to play these video games. Ask me how I know that at this particular time and juncture. But it's still something that when I have that time off and those moments where I can share or reflect on an old school game, that I look at dearly, and Morrowind tends to be the one that gives me the most memories when it comes to that. If I get out of this place barely alive in the game, and I'm like, okay, well now I gotta make it back, and I hope that cliff racers don't descend upon my location. They're always descend upon my location. Yes, I could use Almsy Intervention, Divine Intervention, or Mark and Recall, which were amazing, by the way. Those aren't going to necessarily get me back to where I was completely going to go in the first place. They get me to specified alternative locations. And that was cool. I just thought that was a neat way to incorporate moving across the map quickly without stealing the opportunity for being able to explore or experience something different. Because what happened to one of those places too is a place that you've never been to before, because you just happen to be closer to that tribunal temple or to that Imperial Legion fort, or was a saving grace on the eastern coast, so all means. But that's just my little road ramble, my road thoughts on video game fast traveling. So I got that nerdiness slid right into there as I wear my God of War shirt, which can't be seen on the road, and I'm not going to try to focus on that because I'm driving and I won't be causing myself any more distractions than I probably already have as I rant on about this. And that also goes into just this random thought of how my brain can combine the thoughts of an old video game that I hold dearly in my heart into my travels and everything else that I do in my life. So yeah, there we go. There's my Morrowind mapping skills and my thoughts on fast traveling in video games. So you all have yourselves a wonderful day. Hope y'all like what y'all saw, and if you did, you can smash the like button. You can subscribe and leave me a comment. Groovy, groove-tacular. All right, ta-ta.